2 weeks' notice. The president says he'll decide whether to attack Iran in the next 14 days. Plus, not so fast. She didn't go down for murder, but Karen Read's legal troubles aren't over just yet. And the AI ate my homework, what a new study says about students who rely on ChatGPT. Those stories and more today, Friday, June 20th. I'm Caitlin Becker, and this is the New York Postcast. Foreign ministers from England, France, and Germany are scheduled to meet today with their Iranian counterpart in Geneva, Switzerland, hoping that diplomacy can put an end to the fighting. Now, we will have much more on this story in a bit, but first, here are some of the other headlines that caught our eye today. Democrats in disarray. The biggest donors to the Democratic National Committee are running for the hills. With the 2026 midterms closer than you think, one source told the Post, quote, "We're going to be really effed." DNC Chair Ken Martin is shouldering a lot of the blame from his own party. There are complaints that he's been too preoccupied to bother reaching out to the fat cats who write the big checks. And it's not just a cash flow issue either. The DNC is also short on strategy, and it's a real toss-up as to which of those things matters more come election day. A Democratic source tells the Post, quote, "We are 6 months in and we're drowning," adding that Dems have no clear path nor a plan to regain power in Washington. And a new poll from Stack Data Strategy seems to back that up. Nearly a quarter of Democratic voters who were polled said that they would support Republican House candidates owing to President Trump's tax and tariff policy. In leaked audio obtained by Politico, the DNC chair said, quote, "The other night I said to myself for the first time, I don't know if I want to do this anymore." Now over to Massachusetts. Karen Read is a free woman, but the family of Officer John O'Keefe still want justice. Now, Read was acquitted this week on murder charges, but now she has to contend with a wrongful death lawsuit. The suit not only places the blame on Karen Read, but also the 2 bars that the couple went to earlier in the night. Remember, O'Keefe died in 2022 following an evening of bar hopping. At the first bar, Karen tossed back 7 drinks in an hour and a half, then a shot and a drink at the second one, and then she got behind the wheel. Now, the family says that Karen was too drunk to drive, and in her boozed up state, she hit O'Keefe with her car after the couple had had a blow-up fight. But on Wednesday, a jury acquitted Karen of killing her boyfriend. They did, however, convict her of driving under the influence that night. A juror from her murder case went public following the verdict and said that he was completely convinced of her innocence, but that not everyone in the room was. And that could be good news for O'Keefe's family, since in a civil lawsuit, they only need to prove that she probably did it. And here's something that will surprise absolutely no one. Using AI to do your schoolwork makes you dumber. MIT researchers found that students who use ChatGPT and the like to write their school essays had weaker cognitive skills than those who wrote them without help. But yeah, obviously, if you don't do your own schoolwork, you don't learn your own schoolwork. Another study from Pew Research found that the number of students who have used AI to help them with their homework doubled between 2023 and 2024. But let's make a clear delineation here. There's a difference between having robots do your homework and using AI as a tool to enhance learning. Scientists believe that we're just scratching the surface when it comes to understanding the impact of AI on students. Some believe the long-term effects may include increased ability to be tricked or manipulated, and a loss of creativity. And that's concerning. I am going to need to go vent to my AI therapist about it. Now to our big story, Iran. President Trump is keeping a close eye on today's negotiation in Switzerland. Here's White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt.
I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks."
Now, administration insiders told the Post that the president's delay is reportedly due in part to concerns that toppling Ayatollah Khamenei's regime would create, quote, another Libya. Now, the president has been very clear. Iran cannot be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon. That's the line in the sand. But there's a caveat. he's open to negotiation and says the Iranian delegation wants to come to the White House to discuss it. Meanwhile, Israel's assault on the Islamic Republic continues. Satellite images reveal a massive hole in one of Iran's nuclear reactors left by an Israeli bomb. Iran's recent attacks include one of Israel's key hospitals. Now, that prompted harsh words from Israel's defense minister, who referred to Iranian leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei as, quote, the modern-day Hitler. And for more on this, I am joined by the Post White House reporter, Diana Glebova. Diana, let's start with President Trump's go, no-go decision. He really started the clock on a 2-week window here to decide. So do we know what the president is looking to see to help inform his decision in the next 14 days?
Yeah, I mean, I have two theories. The president hasn't exactly said, he hasn't laid out what specific moment he's looking for. But I think the two theories is that, one, he does want to see that diplomatic agreement with Iran. And maybe these next 2 weeks will give them just one final moment, one final opportunity to bring them to the table. He said Wednesday that Iran had contacted him about even potentially coming to the White House and having these talks. So again, maybe these 2 weeks would really bring them to the table one last time about having absolutely no uranium enrichment, which he has said would be the deal. And the second part, the second theory, is that he wants to see what Israel can do in these next 2 weeks without U.S. military involvement. He has celebrated Israel striking Iran. He's told them to keep going. So maybe he just wants to see if Israel can do it all on their own.
Let's unpack that second theory a little bit. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said this week that the Israeli military does have the weapons needed to end Iran's nuclear program, despite the fact that it has just been widely reported that they don't. So if what he is saying is true, why haven't they used it yet? And what would they need us for?
I mean, that's exactly the question. Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying that Israel can do it all on their own. But then, reportedly, he's been asking Trump at the same time for U.S. military involvement. So I think that if Israel did have the capability of doing it all on their own, why haven't they done it? I mean, we have to see in this next time period if Israel could do it on their own. But the big question is about underground nuclear facilities, specifically a large one called Fardau, which is hidden deep inside an Iranian mountain. And reports indicate that the U.S. military might have to be involved and use military equipment called bunker busters, which would potentially, hopefully, eliminate this nuclear facility. And Netanyahu has said that Israel is capable of doing it. I don't know why they haven't done it. Maybe they're waiting for specific military intelligence. But that is the big question, if the U.S. will have to use their equipment on that site specifically.
I want to talk just a little bit about what type of impact this is having here in the U.S. Some of Trump's supporters, even people in his own administration, have been somewhat divided on these issues. So how does that isolationist versus protectionist debate impact all of this?
Yeah, I think that some of those voices on the right, including Tucker Carlson, who's really popular, and even Vice President J.D. Vance, who has expressed more isolationist policies in the past, I think that has impacted the conversation and the media strategy, at least from the White House, because I've seen them be a little bit more defensive in their argumentation. They've sent out press memos, and they've really been messaging that striking Iran and the U.S. military potentially getting involved in Iran not having a nuclear weapon is part of the America First agenda, is part of the MAGA agenda, and that Trump has been consistently saying that for years, that if Iran did acquire a nuclear weapon, that would be bad for America, that could hurt Americans. And again, the White House has been trying to point this out, that this isn't anything new. They've tried to silence some of these voices, with Trump calling Tucker Carlson kooky, and calling out his relevance right now since he's no longer on a television network. I think that they really want to show that Trump has not been inconsistent and that the American people should really trust him.
Some really good insight there, Diana Glebova. Thank you so much. Now from our friends at Page Six. Never get into cars with strangers. Our parents told us that when we were like 6 years old. Well, Hugh Jackman's mom must have missed that lesson. Wolverine was caught on camera escaping a throng of fans by waving down a completely random car driven by God only knows who, asking the driver, who turned out to be a nice guy and not an axe murderer, for a ride. Thankfully, at the time, he was accompanied by his bodyguard. Now, the Wonder from Down Under is performing an off-Broadway show, and when he left the stage door this week after a matinee, he was swarmed. Just dozens of fans looking for selfies and autographs. So when it was time to get out of Dodge, he walked to the corner and waved down what seems to be the first car he sees. In a city full of taxis, odd choice. We will link to the video in the show notes so you can see this for yourself. Could you even imagine picking up a hitchhiker and it's Hugh Jackman? And finally today, something so heartwarming to start your weekend. Freed Israeli-American hostage Idan Alexander is finally home in New Jersey more than 600 days after he was captured by Hamas. It was an incredibly emotional sight in his hometown of Tenafly. Supporters were lined up and down the street to welcome him home. Now, Idan was born and raised in the small town before he moved to Israel after high school to serve in the Israeli army. His rabbi spoke to a local TV station saying, quote, "Our son returns home and our hearts are full of joy and happiness." Idan was on duty in Israel when he was taken hostage in the October 7th attacks. His release on May 12th of this year was negotiated by President Trump. Welcome home. That's it for today. For more on these stories and everything else you could possibly want to know, check out the New York Post in print or online. And don't forget, like and subscribe to the New York Postcast wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. You will be glad you did. Have a great weekend, and we will see you Monday.